Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I have a guest returning for his third time on my show. I have with me Mike Martin. Mike is an interdimensional explorer and author who has dedicated over 30 years of study to astral projection, lucid dreaming, and the utilization of portals to access alternate realities and dimensions. His journey began in childhood with spontaneous out-of-body experiences, which he later then learned to control and deepen through lucid dreaming techniques. Martin shares his extensive experiences and insights on his YouTube channel, My Dark Explorations, and he also has a book, which I have the link in the description, where he delves into topics such as interdimensional travel, the nature of portals, the concept of breaking free from societal constraints like the Matrix, what we're going to be talking about today. In his book, My Dark Explorations, Portals, Martin recounts his personal experiences with out-of-body travel and discovery of portals that offer glimpses into distant locations and other realities. He emphasizes on the importance of personal growth, skepticism, and self-discovery and spiritual exploration, cautioning against misleading entities in other realms. And I'd like to give him a big warm welcome back to the show. Mike, thanks so much for coming back on, man. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I watched your interview with Tony Sayers to kind of prepare for this. And, I know you have this theory. You want to try to break the matrix. I'm interested, wherever you want to start, how do we break the matrix? And is it possible? And I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, basically for people that don't know who I am or my experiences, I'll kind of go through it a little bit so people can kind of get a background, and then we can move on from there. Basically, it started out as an interest in astral projection when I read about it decades ago, and then I tried it, and eventually I was successful in having a controlled out-of-body experience. And then after I had one, then I realized that's what I was having uncontrolled ones as a child, but I just didn't know what they were. So anyways, as we move ahead, I had my first one. And then after that, I utilized the same program or the same technique to try to have it happen again, which was lucid dreaming. So I use lucid dreaming as a gateway into the astral. So once you're aware that you're in a dream or that you're asleep in a dream, then you tell yourself in your mind that you want to have an out-of-body experience. From then you're whisked off into the astral. That happened the first time. The second time, as soon as I became lucid within a dream, I was in bed, laying on my side with my eyes closed, fully awake, with my eyes still closed. And then I see this, what I call a portal image is what it was. It was a portal. I didn't know what it was. It was an oval image. And I started seeing those. Every time I would become lucid within a dream, instead of having the time to tell myself I wanted to have an out-of-body experience, I'm back in bed and I've got these portals in front of me. And it could be different locations, could be different landscapes. There was no telling what it was going to be. So eventually they didn't have that oval portal. They eventually took my whole peripheral vision. It's just like in the astral, it's almost 360 degrees. So everything I saw was like being in that landscape or being in the location that I was seeing. Now I would see and experience that for a matter of, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds with that experience, and then it would fade away. And through time, through many decades, I figured out that the state of my mind at that time, or the state of my brain at the time, was closest to the hypnagogic state. So that's where I was making that connection at that moment. So eventually what was happening is I was thrown into it every time. And then eventually it stopped happening. The portal stopped appearing, but I would kind of wake up still half asleep in that state. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I can actually initiate them myself. So I discovered a little quick process and I was able to initiate them. So every time I got into that state, I initiated them myself rather than having the automatic initiation. And then I discovered they were portals. Then I said, well, there's got to be another way. After about 20 years, I said, there's got to be another way for me to access these portals without having to go to sleep and then hopefully become lucid in a dream. Because it doesn't happen that often generally. Sometimes I can increase my chances, but still you kind of have to wait for it. So I discovered while on my long drive to work and back every day that I could access something behind the daydream state. So over time, I discovered that the dream state and the daydream state are very close when it comes down to your brain activity. So I realized that there was something happening. So here's my daydream state, but behind it, way back here, is something going on. Well, luckily, I was able to find out there was something behind the daydream state. So I studied that and I went into it pretty in depth, and it took me about a year and a half to figure out what was going on there. And I realized that we're living alternate realities. And also there's other dimensions that we can visit. And this is happening to everybody. So it's not just me. It's not just the astral. It's not just the mental planes. We have other things going on. So in the daydream state, now when I was experiencing these portals, sometimes it was happening here, what I would consider on Earth. And other times it was just places that I wouldn't obviously recognize. Some of them were two-dimensional worlds. So they're obviously not part of our reality base. It would have to be another dimension of some sort. So once I started going behind the dream state, the daydream state, then I realized we're visiting other dimensions and alternate realities. We're basically living other lives of other selves. And at times we all go utilize these portals. They're natural. We live within that during dream states and that sort of thing. We come back, you don't remember it, because what happens is when you're connected to that other dimension or other reality, your consciousness comes back through the veil. And what it does is it erases everything. So the only thing that you remember is either the daydream or maybe something else behind there, but you don't know. Go ahead.
Mike, I gotta tell you about this. I know me and you have talked you've been on my show a couple times, and I can't believe I never told you about this. I just want to get your opinion on this. So my audience knows about this. So guys, I don't want my audience to get mad that I'm talking about this again, but I think it's important to talk about it with you, considering what you know. I've been telling people lately that I would have these dreams, right? And in these dreams, I become lucid in them. And it's not that I become lucid, but like, I think I'm living another reality. And I feel like I'm living another reality. And everything seems real. But for example, like in my life here, I live in the suburbs and I'm a podcaster, right? But in these dreams, like one dream, I'm like working, I'm like, almost like an Amish community. It's always something real 3D. It's never like aliens or anything. It's always 3D. Like I'm in an Amish community or a farming community. I'm building barns and milking cows and and it seems real. And like when my wife in that reality makes bread, you can smell the bread. Everything seems so real. But what's crazy about it is when I'm in this reality, like it feels like I'll be gone I'll live there for like months, right? But then I come back and I wake up and I've only slept like 5 hours. It's insane. It's insane. I don't know what that is.
Let me try to cover those points and tell me if I missed something, because sometimes I get into it and then I just miss something. Anyways, so first of all, what normally happens is in our regular dreams, our subconscious is in our astral body and it's experiencing things, and what we get back is filtered junk. It's misinformation. Yeah. It's meant to not let us know what's really happening in the astral when we're sleeping, because it wants everything to be kept secret. Our subconsciousness is not our friend. It is what I call the enemy within. So Given that, also our consciousness and our subconsciousness are different. So we have three bodies. We have a physical body on the physical plane. We have an astral body or spirit body on the astral plane. Then we have a soul on the mental plane. Then we have a subconsciousness, okay? Those three bodies in the subconsciousness are not us. They are part of the prison system that we're trapped in. Our consciousness is trapped within that three-body system and overseen by the subconsciousness. The subconsciousness controls it. It's like the spider above controlling all the little moving parts. But that subconsciousness is part of the whole entire universal subconsciousness that oversees and misdirects and everything, our whole world and our whole lives. So it knows everything, whether it happens to me or to you or whatever, it's aware of it all. So given that, if you're becoming lucid within that, you could be having what I call, like in a daydream, a portal connection with another life. Now, when I say there's connections with like an alternate reality, it's as if I am that person. I'm there as that person. And when I first started going there, I didn't realize there was a difference between me and them until I came back and I go, well, that felt like it was me. So
yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah,
right,
that's how I feel.
After hundreds of these experiences, I finally got to the point where, okay, like me going behind the dream state when I'm back here, when I first went there, I only had enough focus to stay there and remain connected and try to remember what was happening. Once I've been doing it so many times, then I have the ability to actually think while I'm in there. And once I'm able to think and hold enough my concentration to stay there, then I can begin to see things from a third person view. So what you're doing is you're entering this alternate reality, this alternate personality that you are, and you're living within that during that state. You're making that connection. If you make that connection enough times, over time, you will be able to think as you within that body. But you spend your time, when I say time doesn't exist. You spend that time trying to figure out what's happening, where am I at, who are these people? You're trying to figure it out. You know what it is in there, but you're trying to figure out, get a bearing on your location. So when I say time doesn't exist, here we have time. It's point A to point B, and in between you have this distance, okay? When you're there, when you're not in the physical, when your consciousness is there, the only thing there exists is the present, just what's happening right now. There is no expansion. It's all in the now. The way you think and what happens only matters at that moment. That's how everything really exists, because the past is a memory and the future is you hoping. It's a projection. Your present is the only thing that really matters and that really exists. So when you're there, it could feel like months, or it could be months. In that frame of time or that place, it could be months. You come back here, it could be 5 seconds or a minute. You have no concept of time really there other than what's happening on that plane. So when you come back to this plane, there's no way for you to be able to compare what's going on because they're not the same.
That's fascinating. Wow, that blows my mind. So, I mean, but what I found interesting is you said a lot of times when we're in these realities, there's other stuff going on. Like our subconscious is feeding us bullshit, so we don't know what's really going on in the astral. Is that what you're kind of saying now?
Okay. So most likely, if you're living through that, if you're lucid, okay, if you're lucid, generally you're within a state that you can move on to the astral or you can move to somewhere else. Okay. Most likely you could be utilizing the portal connection into one of your alternate realities, one of your alternate lives. You know, a lot of times if you're completely lucid, most likely you're not going to be tricked on the astral because you're aware of what's going on. It sounds to me like this connection you're making is like behind the daydream state. You're making a portal connection, which the portals are just like we use cell phones, you know, I mean, but it's a natural ability and it's a natural connection that we make without even thinking. It's just something that we're moving in and out constantly because our consciousness is not just this little ball of energy. It's multi-layered everything. So it can remain on different levels simultaneously, because really, if you say, okay, well, there's alternate reality 1, alternate reality 2, they're all in the same space at the same time. It's just like a radio station. If we have 500 radio stations on the dial, and the only way that you can get to each one is to dial into that specific frequency, all you're doing is moving between frequencies. Those portals, all they're doing is connecting you with other frequencies. You're not going anywhere. You're still in the same space, but you're now connected to a different frequency.
That's interesting. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, wow, this is fascinating. So,
people generally look at things. It's like, okay, the astral. Okay, the astral, not that big of a deal. What it is the astral is the overseen area. That's basically, if the Earth is a prison, the astral's a prison yard. That's all it is. Because usually the only way you can connect with the astral is through the spirit body. Again, body's a prison. Any soul's a prison, spirit's a prison, physical body's a prison, subconsciousness is the overseer of the prisons. So when you're going to these alternate realities and stuff, your consciousness is projecting. You're not projecting with a body. So momentarily you're out of this prison system. You're in this other system. Or if you go to different dimensions, you connect with them. You're not within this prison system. You're still obviously connected here. You're grounded here, but you can project that through the portal connection.
Question. So do you feel like with like these abilities that we have, like did somebody like meant for us to be able to break out of this system? Do you think whoever created us or do you think there might be multiple entities involved in our creation that oversee us, that like maybe someone that are our best interest, or I mean, like what resonates with you with that? Like, do you think we were given an ability to break out of this matrix, or do you feel like we're meant to stay here in this prison, like, and there is no escape?
Well, I believe that we're it's like universal dimensional creatures, and at one point we were dumbed down and trapped within this low vibrational system with these three bodies and the subconscious overseer and everything. So we're basically a consciousness. We're pure energy. So at some point we ended up here. I don't know why, what happened. That's my next quest, to try to figure out that. But I do know that we're in this system overseen by what I call it the predator-prey scenario. We are the prey, and we have predators that feed off of our vibrational energy because we are energy sources. That's the reason for us being here in the first place. And that's why we're being manipulated, deceived through their illusionary deceptions, so that we remain in this system, recycling and feeding the system constantly. So my thought was, okay, I've had these experiences. I had to find out what to learn from them, what information to grasp from them, what the real truth was. Because there's a lot of information you get, whether it's on the astral or these other dimensions, that is not going to be information that's even worth a shit most of the time. Most of it is, if it's coming from another being, it's either more lies or deception. Once in a while, you'll get something worthwhile. But if you can't prove it, then you can't prove that it's truth. So what I did is I just kept experiencing them more and more, and I just kept digging deeper and deeper, and just to figure out what's behind what I'm seeing. Because everything that you generally see, whether you're going into the astral or these other dimensions and stuff, if you're dealing with other beings, it's all illusionary. They can control what they look like. They can control the background. They can control your experience. So you have no idea what another being, what their intentions are, and there's no way you're going to know. You just know what they tell you. So I decided I'm not going to rely on any other being or anything. I'm going to rely on my own experiences to figure out what the hell's going on. And my first thing is okay, now I know that we're stuck in this prison system. How the hell do we get out of here? And that was my question for many years. What normally happens is, I'm from the technical field, and it doesn't always have to be a technical question, but a lot of times, I just come to a point where I say, okay, I have this question, and I don't know the answer. I don't have the ability to just find the answer. So I need an answer to this. So I pose the question to myself, hey, I know our situation. So how do we get the hell out of here? What's going to work for us? Because you can utilize these portals. There's different things you can come up with, or you say, oh, when I die, then I'm just going to go and try to remember to say, oh, I don't want to go, or I'm not going to get that doesn't work. Obviously, if that worked, there'd be more people. There would be a lot less people here. You can't rely on, okay, when I die, I'm going to remember this. That's not going to work, because the illusionary scale can be easily, by the manipulators, can be easily turned up. You get good at something, they'll just turn it up a little bit more. Like in dream state, you can easily be challenged in that, and they'll blow you out of the water. Their illusionary skills, they're masters of manipulation. You're not going to beat them at their own game. Never going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to figure out how you can disable or dismantle the system. And because we're within, like if you're going to hack a system, hacking it from within is going to be the best place to be. Well, guess where we're at? We're within, and we're unlimited energy sources. So let's figure this out. So one day, this is not long ago, I got an answer to my question. Okay. The answer was, instead of feeding the system, because we feed the captors, that's our purpose, why don't we take the energy back and not feed them? Okay. If you look at things like, say, a motor can either generate energy or it can consume energy. It works both ways. It's kind of like a power source. So what I thought was, okay, so in the past, I've worked with these systems before, and I thought, you know what? If we can pull that back, how are we going to be able to do that? Well, for many years, and just like the portals started showing up, for many years, I was challenged with some of these things that I didn't understand. I would all of a sudden, suddenly years ago, feel like this burst of energy going through me. And when I'd have certain types of dreams, I would feel like I'd lose a bunch of energy because it was maybe like, sometimes you come up with a nightmarish type of dream, and then the hair stands up on the back of your neck and you feel like a rush of energy. Well, I realized that at that point, when those dreams and you're being subjected to that, you're releasing energy. And you're releasing that energy for the entities that are causing you to be in this situation. Because I used to have a lot of nightmares as a kid, and I kind of learned it as an adult what was going on. There's an energy exchange there. And that was a large energy exchange for enough for me to really feel it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to learn how to suppress that, how to suppress the way that energy flows, and hold on to it or pull it in from different sources. So I spent a lot of years, I didn't realize really what I was doing, but I figured it out. So I said, okay, let's do this. Now that I have the answer, let me show people. I made a video on my YouTube page and on my Rumble channel, and it's called The Solution. I think I put it out about a month or so ago. And it's our solution. How do you take back our power and reverse the predator-prey situation, our situation, so we become the predator and they become the prey? What we want to do is we want to reverse the flow of energy from us to them and pull everything out of them and back into us, because we are energy beings. We have the ability. If we can release it, we can input that energy as well. So I decided to utilize my I call it the glimpse state, the one where I go behind the daydream. I call them glimpses because at first it was like it was just a glimpse of information. Finally, over time, I was able to interact with it and figure out what was going on. So I said, okay, let me figure out if this is going to work. So I went within this glimpse state and I created, through visualization, an entire production. And in that production, I decided, okay, I'm going to, based on my thoughts, the way that I think what works for me, I created a three-dimensional production of how I was going to take back the power from these sources. Because if they're non-physical beings, the only way that you can combat them is non-physically. And our power is through our visualization skills and the way that we can utilize, because we are creators. That's how we create. And so what I decided to do, I created my own production. And I said, okay, let me see if this works. And there'll be outcome from this if it does work. So I created this whole visualization process, utilizing things that meant something to me, as I'd done in the past. And in that non-physical space, I did that. And I did it a few times, and I started getting negative feedback from it. Negative feedback in the way of things started happening. And I knew at that point I was moving in the right direction, because the first thing is, if you're doing something that, somebody doesn't like, they're going to let you know pretty quickly. Well, this happened very quickly, and I kept doing it. And then I saw more of an event. People say, well, aren't you afraid that, something's going to happen to you? I go, okay, so I'm a prisoner in a prison cell, and I'm getting tormented in all directions, just like everybody does. Okay. So are you afraid of them getting pissed off and doing the same thing they're doing to you now? They're going to do it whether you don't do anything or not. So why not combat them and work your way into it? Because eventually you'll be on the other side of the block. You'll have your finger on them, and instead of them having the finger on you. So that's what I came up with.
Wow, that's fascinating. So it's all about like taking our energy back, like, or owning our energy to a certain degree. Like,
right now, we're energy sources. We're creative energy, and we're put in the situation. So like when you see on the news, car crashes and wars and suffering and homelessness and starvation and depression and drug abuse, all these things, we're being this is what I call the game. This is the game of life. We're put down here to produce energy. And usually low level energy is the one that's or concern and worry. So, every time you turn around, there's another bill. There's higher pricing. There's another war. There's more conflict. There's never enough money. You've got other medical worries. You got this, you got that. There's always a barrage of negative things happening in people's lives. So they're having to work harder. They're having to do this. They're having to do that. So this keeps you in that game. This keeps you in this bubble. You stay in this bubble because that bubble is your safe zone. That's your comfort zone. And you do what you need to do, what you feel you need to do to survive. You're not living. You're always surviving. If I can just get over this next hump, if I can just do this, if I can just do this, it's a game meant to keep you in the game. Because no matter even if you were able to meet one of your goals, when you get there, there's absolutely no satisfaction in it. You go, I worked all this time and all this hard, and I don't feel like I got any satisfaction out of it. So you set another
That's so
goal.
True.
It's
crazy. Like,
goal farther down the line.
That's exactly how my life is. It's exactly how my life is. It's crazy. You get it. Like you understand. Yeah, it's like, it's weird, right? It's like there's no living. It's only like just existing and like trying to get to the next. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and people don't realize that, like, it's mostly everybody's living like that. I wonder if there's like a few people that are like really rich. Like, I wonder how those people like what their role is in this game, or or maybe if they're like NPCs to make us feel bad about like that they have all this wealth and we want to try to aspire to that, or I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think just because people are rich that they're happy, and rich and happy don't generally work out that way. I mean, because a lot of times you realize the rich never have enough money to feel secure, or if they have more money, then they don't feel secure because they feel they feel threatened because somebody else wants their wealth, or they want this, or they want. So there's always something, or they get rich and then they start having medical problems, or they have mental issues, or they have family problems, or they have this, or an addiction, a gambling addiction, drugs, whatever. There's never going to be a time in life where you're going to be happy. You have to decide to be happy, but the thing is, it's not meant for you to be happy. It's not meant for you to be content. And no matter what you do or what you follow through with, it's never going to work, because the system is set up to fail all the time, because you're in a prison and you have to keep producing that low frequency energy. So you get depressed, you get angry, let's say, then there's another thing, that two words that are really detrimental to us, our lives: hope and faith. Hope. A lot of people call it hopium, just like a drug. I really hope if I just won that lottery, I could do, you're going to keep hoping, and hope feeds more hope. So you just keep going on, and then you get let down, and then you say, "Oh, well, I'm really gonna hope again. I'm gonna have faith and believe this. I got to do this." You put your faith in people that you can't trust versus people that will tell you the truth, and then you also spend your time putting your faith in other things and other people, when it should be, if you're gonna have faith in anyone, it should be yourself. Don't ever believe anybody else is out there for your best interest, because it's never going to happen. Everybody's out there for their own best interest. That's the way it happens. That's the way life is. So if you're gonna do something, you rely on yourself. Number one, there's no saviors. If you want a savior, look in the mirror. That's your savior, because nobody else is going to do it for you. I tell people, you have to be an independent, self-reliant person. You have to become that. You have to make yourself that, because you have to be in control of your thoughts. You have to be in control of your emotions, and you have to be in control of your feelings, because that is all part of you. And also that is part of how your energy works as well. So if you're feeling down and all this, and you can get yourself out of it, but you have to decide to do that, and you have to get good at it. You have to work on it. And then also with drama, people are so involved in drama. You can watch something on TV and they get triggered. It's like, come on, you're in control of it. But do you want to just keep throwing your energy out to these beings because you're just, you're reacting to everything. People react. They don't work on their own. They're not independent beings. They're reactive beings. All they do is walk around and react to everything that happens. It's like you're out floating on this little tiny boat. You're not paddling. You just wait for the waves to push you in all these directions. And you're hoping and you're faithful that those waves are going to get you where you want to go. But it's never going to happen, because unless you get off your ass and do it yourself, it's never going to happen. That's the reality of what it is. And we live in a crappy situation. So it's never going to be for your best interest. And if something does good to come your way, there's probably something even 10 times worse that's behind it. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be realistic, because you're never going to be in a position of happiness if you're depending on outside sources for it. You have to do it for yourself. And I'm not just worried about being happy, but I'm worried about being in control. Like I said, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. If you can't control one or any of those, or even just two of them, that's not enough. You need to control all of them. Because if you can't, then you are allowing control of you, just like when you sleep at night. 8 hours or 6 hours of your life are controlled by your subconsciousness. What are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing. You go drive 100 miles and 30 miles of it, you don't remember. What are you doing? I don't know, because your subconsciousness was in control. If you're not lucid, if you're not awake during all the moments of your life, then you're not in control. You're handing control over to a third party, and you say, I don't know what happened. Well, then how much of a life is that?
Really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. Well, I love this stuff. Like, this is really good. So like, what do you think we do? Like when we, I mean, how do I say this? Do you think it's possible to break out of this matrix before our time ends here, or do you have a specific plan when you leave here, what you're going to do to like leave this place? Like, you know what I mean? Like
the plan for taking back the energy, that's the long-term plan. And that's the whole thing about, even if you were to find a way, say you found a way, okay? But the subconsciousness is connected with, it knows your thoughts, your emotions, it knows everything. Even if you were able to find a way and somehow get out, say you got 2 or 3 people out, okay, that door shuts. It's like escaping prison. You get 2 people out, they figure out how you got out, it won't happen again. So you want to try to get 2 or 3 people out, or do you want to get everybody out? So the only way that I believe that we are going to get out of this situation is by bringing down the system. By bringing down the system, by eliminating the energy our energy inputs to them, and pull it back out of them. So eventually there won't be anything for them here they'll either have to leave or the system will just crash. That way we'll all be free at that point. That's my hope, but you'd have to get enough people together to do it. Now, we all are energy sources. We don't even realize what our potential is because we're stuck in this very simple, I call it one-dimensional system, where we just kind of think about what's going on in this little tiny area. This is us in here and our limitations. We don't expand anything because we're taught, oh, well, you just go to school, you learn this, you go to a job, then you have a family, then you get old and you die, and then you move on, you come back and you do the same crap over and over again. You got the mind wipe. So anything you built the life before is all erased. So you're back to the same hole again. But what I say is, let's work on getting the system dismantled. Let's take the system down, and that way we're in full control of what's going on, and we can decide, we can determine at that point, because we won't be trapped in the system any longer. If you just try to get out after you die, most likely none of that's going to work because people think they have a good idea. I've seen the deception. I've experienced it. I've spent a lot of time in lucidity, a lot of time in these other dimensions and stuff. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because no matter how good, how well trained you are, they're always going to be better at that game. If you're going to fight an enemy, you don't fight them on their turf and play their game. You change the numbers and you play your own game. You flip it around on them to where now they're running from you rather than you running from them. You want to become the predator and not the prey. And when we take back our energy, we become the predators and they become the prey. We're switching the roles, because that's the only way I foresee us getting anywhere and making any headway, because you can't beat them at their game. Not going to happen. We have to beat them at our game.
Well, how many people do you think it would be? I mean, just a guesstimate. Like, how many do you think we would need the whole Earth to do this, or do you think if we got a selected amount of people to?
I think if we got enough good people to do it, that were persistent and follow through with it. I think the hardest part is, and I've experienced this. You get people that are interested and might dab a little bit or read a little bit, then they move on, and then you get people that might follow through a little bit, but they quickly lose interest. And then you get the people that are a little bit more hardcore. I think a lot of it depends on how much effort you're willing to put into this. And it's just like the spiritual side. I say spirituality is the same as freedom. Spirituality is your freedom. And if people haven't put a lot of time and energy into it, I don't believe they're going to put a lot of time and energy into this, because they don't see it as something that's, viable, or they don't have as much experience in it because they really don't believe in it. I mean, if you've seen beyond us, if you experience beyond us, then you know that there is obviously something non-physical there because you've experienced it. So once you've experienced it, then you know it's a reality. Then when you put the effort into this, you're putting it into something that you've already worked within. So you feel comfortable in it and you believe it because you've experienced it so many times. So it really depends on the person. It just, a lot of people nowadays don't seem to have the drive or want to put forth the effort to do something. They just want to be able to, I can just push a button and just give me something easy where I can do it. 5 minutes is all I got. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. But you have to think about it this way. How important for you is it to get out of this mess? If it's not important enough, then you're not going to do anything about it. I mean, I guess you have to get to the point where you're just totally fed up with this crap. And if you're fed up with it, then maybe you'll put forth enough effort to get yourself out of it. But if you don't, then it's your fault, not anybody else's. I mean, everybody is going to help, but I can't tell you numbers or anything of that nature. But I can say, the more effort, the more people, the better the results.
Yeah, I love that. Black Uni Gryphon, she had a quote from the chat. This is someone from the chat. I'll put the question up on the screen. She says she feels like there's various adjacent spaces existing parallel to ours. like this 3D and as atoms and photons, but then there's another one and more like astral plane, but also there's stuff beside us as well. Is that kind of like what you were saying as well?
Well, like I said, there's the astral and there's the mental planes above the physical. And then besides that, they have alternate realities. So basically we're living other lives in different realities. And then there's other dimensions, which could be worlds like two-dimensional worlds where everything is just flat, but there's actually moving things in it. There's worlds where things look more like doodles than they do look like anything else. And those are two-dimensional. A lot of them are. So I would say the amount of them is probably unlimited. We probably couldn't even count as high as the levels of dimensions and the levels of alternate realities. I believe they just go on forever. There's just absolutely no end to them. So when we say, oh yeah, there's something probably past the astral and far beyond that. It goes beyond we're thinking one-dimensionally. We're just thinking in this straight line because physically, you only have access to it. But if you start moving inward, you start looking within yourself, you start discovering that you have abilities that you didn't realize you had, like, for instance, opening portals, utilizing moving your consciousness, and seeing things that are beyond what most people can experience. And once you start to begin to see that, then things start to open up and you start to get access to a little more and a little more and a little more. So I would say if we could, as anybody, if we could see 1% of our capabilities or our abilities, then you would be floored, completely floored. I think we're just stuck here and just dumbed down so that we can't see what we really are. Because if we knew what we really were, then the gloves would be off and it would be over in a moment. If we had our 100% control of our facilities, our faculties, then it would be over. So obviously, if we were docile creatures, we didn't have the potential for anything, we wouldn't be under such stringent control. So obviously we have the ability to do it. We just have to work and look within and work on it, because if you don't put any effort towards it, you're never going to get anywhere.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I'm just trying to think if I've had any other questions. I don't think. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we finish up for tonight?
Just basically, getting in control of everything. I wanted to try to cover everything tonight in a short period of time to get people so that they could start working on things. If it's something that really makes a difference, that really rings true with you, because what we're doing is we're not only working for ourselves when we work on this. We're working. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it for everybody else. If you work on this, you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for me, and you're working for everybody else. What I'm trying to do is short circuit the system so that we're not reborn all this time and waste all this energy. We could have been doing this for eons. We don't even know how long we've been in this situation or how many times. It's probably endless. And if somebody doesn't decide to stop it, it's never going to end. How many times do you want to have your parents die, or your children die, or all these going through suffering and wars? How long do you want to put yourself through this? Because you have the control to stop it. You have the potential to stop all of this from happening. But you first have to decide to do it. And if you can't even do that, what does that say about you? Really, we have to think about what you are, what you want to be, what you teach your children, or whatever. But at some point, people have to stand up for themselves. We've been so accustomed to allowing politicians or religious leaders or whatever tell us what we need to do. We're in our comfort zone. We feel comfortable in here with our limitations. But once you start to expand those limitations, you start to see more of the big picture. And as you do, you realize, wow, there's so much more out there. And we're not in it. We're being blocked from it. And so don't we want to live up to our true potential? I don't know. I know quite a few people and met quite a few people, and I can't say I know very many happy ones. not long-term happy. So if you think you're happy, then maybe you should look at your life and look at the situation you're in and try to do it from that, because I'm not trying to look at things from a bad point of view, because I don't try to look at things as good or bad. I look at it as what works and what doesn't. And when everybody has everybody should have their independence, ability to do whatever they choose to without stepping on anybody else's feet. So, what do you really want out of your life? What do you really want? So that's what you have to answer for yourself. And if you're not happy, if you're not really content with this, then, that's the way you need to move. I've laid it out. I didn't have anybody laying it out for me. I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I spent a lot of my time doing this. And you can either decide it's for you or it's not. It's completely your choice. I tell everybody, don't believe in me. I'm not a savior. If you want somebody to believe in yourself. I want people to be independent and self-reliant. Those are the most important things to be, so that you're not depending on someone else. Because once you depend on someone else, then you're no different from any other dependent.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Someone in the audience asked about hypnosis, because I asked the audience if they had any questions for you. There was a couple. So one person wants to know what you think about aliens, and then the other person wants to know what you think about hypnosis. Like, do you have opinions?
Yeah, let me say this about hypnosis, and I'm speaking from. I'm trying to remember the lady's name. She did a lot of past life regression, and she was pretty popular. And so what she would do is she would go, and she documented all of her stuff. She was going in and doing these past life regressions. And I think she contacted, I don't think it was Einstein or something, through somebody. And the person could no longer do it. So she went to another person, and she got that same Einstein through there. And so she was talking through them, and they had to stop. So she went a third person, and they had the same Einstein. What you have to remember is this, what I call the subconscious, the overseer, is in control or connected with everybody. So if you had individuals, complete individuals, and you kept getting the same entity through all those different individuals, then you'd say, wow, they got to be connected some way. Well, of course they're connected. This past life stuff, they're feeding you the same crap that you get from the astral through the dream state and stuff. All these spirit guides and all these are part of the system. They're part of the subconscious warden system. They will tell you what you want to hear. They feed off your emotions, your feelings, and everything. They are connected to an etheric database that we're all connected to. And then the subconscious feeds from that. And what's happening is every time you feel or experience something, these guides and all these spirit beings, what they call themselves, because they could either be a devil or they could be an angel. They're the same thing. They can portray themselves as anything you want. They know you better than you know yourself. So when you go to the astral or see them, they're going to feed you the crap that you want to hear in order for you to follow them, because they're damage control. They're to keep control so that you follow that same agenda. They don't want you getting out of that system. So that subconscious is feeding all those people through the past life regressions the stuff they want you to hear, the stuff they know you want to hear. Oh, yeah, you were Jesus before, or you were Abraham or Muhammad or whatever. It's all the same crap. It's a game. It's called manipulation, and you have to get better at it than they do. And that's almost impossible. So what you have to do is learn how to discover and recognize how you're being manipulated. And then once you recognize it, then you don't play the game.
I love that. That's amazing. This is amazing stuff, Mike. I think you kind of laid it out for us today. Like, we all have to regain our own sovereignty and stop giving our energy away, so we can break this matrix, I guess. And that's how we start to break the matrix, right?
Yeah, and like I said, I post stuff on my channels so that people can access it. If they have questions, I answer them. I answer my emails. I answer the comments. I try to keep track of everything so that I'm here to help people, so that if they're serious about something and they have questions, I actually will get back to them. I'm not like blowing people off. I don't, there's nothing worse than having a legitimate question and nobody to answer you, especially if they're doing, interviews. Well, what's the sense of doing it if you're not going to help people out? That's the whole purpose behind it. I don't make money off this. This is about me helping people, because if I help you and I train you, that means you're going to help me too. We're all helping each other. This is all about the harder we all work, the better it pays off to all of us. And that's why I'm doing it, so that we can work together. I mean, we're working independently, but it all serves the same function.
No, I agree. This is awesome. Yeah, this is really good stuff. I was just looking at the comments, see if there's any other questions. Well, I think that's it. Let me see. And what do you feel? Black Uni in the chat thought that maybe she's going to be getting help from like a past loved one. Do you think that like past loved ones can help us on the other side at all, or like from the other side? Or do you think like people? What do you think happens to people when they first exit this place? Like, or what do you think could happen with that?
All right, let me give you an example from my personal experience just recently, and then I'll go into it a little bit. So we had one of our pets that we really loved, and he ended up catching cancer, and we did everything we could to try, like homeopathic, to try to keep him healthy. And once he started really declining, we had to put him to sleep because we wanted to be humane about it. We didn't want him to suffer. Okay, so that really affected me because he was a family member. So maybe a couple months later, he showed up in one of my dreams. Okay. And as soon as he showed up in my dream, I became lucid, because I said, this right here pulls my heartstrings, and I'm going to come to a conclusion on this. Okay. So he runs in behind me, because I opened the door, one of our sliding doors, and he runs in behind me. As soon as I saw him, I became lucid. I go, I'm going to play this out and see what's going on. He lays down on the ground, because I started really paying attention to him. He broke down, and his visual image broke down, and it was pieces. It began to take forms as almost pieces of like organs. It looked like something gray matter was making it up. And then that began to break down, which shows me that what was happening is the image of him in my dream was meant to farm the emotions from me. But because I became lucid within it and I began to concentrate on it, what he was made of from that source was basically falling apart, because it wasn't supporting what they had proposed him to do. So I got to see what he was really made up of in that dream, and it was just junk. It wasn't him. Obviously, it wasn't him. So what I say is, and I've had other examples very similar to that. What I say is, when you're having dreams, what you're doing is your subconsciousness is feeding that information back. So basically, your consciousness is sitting here in your physical body. I'll give it a place to be. And then your subconsciousness is out there in the astral body, and it comes back and it just gives you a bunch of junk. Okay. That's generally what happens. So, but if you happen to see your loved ones over there in the astral, in a dream, what's happening is they are projecting that image of them for you to react. So for your consciousness to react to that image of what they're seeing. So you got love and it's missing them. You're projecting that energy out while you're seeing that. And that's what's happening. They're not there. It's not them. Because once people die, they're going to move on, but they're not going to be there. And anything that image or that family member is going to tell you is going to be manipulation, because they're not going to come back and do that. Anything that you're going to see, most likely at even astral based or anywhere else, is going to be for their manipulative purposes. Don't believe anything. Don't buy into that crap, because what they're doing is they're pulling on your heartstrings. They know exactly what happened in that lifetime, how attached you were, everything. And they will do whatever they can to to absorb, to suck out whatever that is that they want from you. So, I know it sucks, and that's not what we've been taught, but that's the reality of our situation. Because once people move on, most likely you're probably never going to get in touch with them again. Because what happens is that person that is somehow another conscious being somewhere, and the consciousness is going to move on. Now, the image of the whatever is still going to be there, maybe in some spirit form. But that's all controlled by the astral. Nothing happens unless they know what's going on. So don't trust loved ones, don't trust pets, don't trust any of that crap, because they're all just playing you. They're playing on your emotions, because they know emotions are the one thing that most people aren't in control of. And emotions and feelings are nothing but physical attributes. Once you move your consciousness out of this realm, you don't have those feelings and you don't have those emotions. You don't have the drama. You don't have the worries. But yet you can still utilize telepathy and all these other abilities. Those are all natural. When you come back here, you've got space-time, you've got feelings, you got emotions, you got all this drama. That doesn't exist in our reality. But those are things that attach us to our way of life. They attach us to this prison. And that's why they're here, because they can manipulate us through drama. Like if you come home and your spouse starts yelling at you right off the bat, and you're like, all of a sudden you start feeling bad. You didn't even do anything. But you know what? It's because the situation has taken a hold of you. And that's how things happen. You're reacting to the situation.
Wow, that's deep, man. That means that we shouldn't trust anything that comes through. We shouldn't trust anything that comes through. Basically,
correct. Wow. Everything, even my own experiences through years, I didn't put any weight into it until I could potentially find something to support it. But over time, what I utilized was the experiences. I utilized the experiences. I didn't buy into them. But what I did is I used one to build upon the other. And it's just like a foundation to figure out what was going on. So sometimes you need to dig down deeper and stuff. But by not buying into the surface area, don't buy into the visual, don't buy into the emotional, because that's where they buy you. That's where they get you. If you're in control of those, then you're more than likely going to say, oh, I tell everybody, question everything. Question everything to the smallest degree. Because when you start to begin to question everything, then you determine most of what you believe in is probably a lie.
Wow, this is amazing. Well, this is amazing, Mike. Well, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? And thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome.
I have a YouTube channel called My Dark Explorations. I have a Rumble channel called My Dark Explorations. I have a couple books on Kindle. The first one is My Dark Explorations, and Portals, Astral, and Glimpses, I believe. Then the second one my second book is The Spiritualist Manifesto, A Guide to Freedom, on Kindle. And my latest book is the Leaving the Illusion of Life, and that's also on Kindle. So, and like I said, I'm posting videos quite often on the channels. So, and if you have questions or comments or whatever, I've got email connected with my Rumble and my YouTube accounts, as well as the comment section. So, I'm open for information or interaction, so that, if I can help people, even with just a little bit, just maybe one word to help them light the spark and get moving on their way, that's all that matters.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for doing this today. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody. And thanks, Mike.